Almost 1 year after its release on PS5, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has finally made its way to PC, and with this port Square Enix has a lot to prove and address, especially after the disastrous PC port of the previous game. Technically speaking, much like its predecessor, Rebirth is built using Unreal Engine 4, which is an unusual choice for a AAA game released in 2024. While the engine provides visually stunning cutscenes complete with excellent lighting, shading, and highly detailed character models, the cracks begin to show during regular gameplay, and the limitations of Unreal Engine 4 become increasingly apparent, with poor global illumination and low-quality baked lighting, which in my opinion looks worse than the previous game. Shadows also suffer from low resolution and aggressive cascades. These issues, combined with low resolution textures and an inconsistent mix of low and high quality assets, results in a flat and uneven visual presentation across many scenes. But despite these shortcomings, the game's exceptional art direction does much of the heavy lifting. Outdoor areas in particular stand out, showcasing breathtaking vistas and carefully crafted environments that help mask some of the technical flaws. Now, in terms of performance and stuttering, there is a shader compilation step when firing up the game for the first time, and it takes around 1 minute and 47 seconds on the 5700 X3D. But this step does not cover all the shaders, as shader compilation stutters can still occur when new effects appear, like here during this first combat encounter. But despite this, the stuttering is far less severe than in the first game, and after about 30 minutes of gameplay, the performance becomes significantly more stable, providing a smoother overall experience. When it comes to the graphics settings, the game is disappointingly limited in terms of performance scaling, and only a handful of options provide any meaningful impact on performance. So let's jump right into the settings, and let's start with image quality. Currently the game only supports DLSS with no options for FSR or XeSS, which is a glaring omission for a 2025 release, especially for a game built on Unreal Engine. Even more disappointing is the poor implementation of DLSS in this game. But despite its flaws, DLSS still delivers a sharper and more stable image compared to TAA and TAAU. TAAU in turn looks noticeably better than TAA, whether when upscaling as you can see here, or running the game at native resolution. In terms of performance, TAA and TAAU perform almost identically, while native DLSS or DLAA runs around 4% slower. When upscaling, TAA offers a slight performance boost, running approximately 3% faster. However, I still don't recommend using TAA due to its inferior image quality. If you have access to DLSS, it's the best choice overall. For those without DLSS capable hardware, TAAU is the next best option. Dynamic resolution scaling is a key feature in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, offering full control over the minimum and maximum resolution as well as the target frame rate. And it's clear that this game is built with this feature in mind, as the presets apply an aggressive dynamic resolution range of 50% to 100% by default. And this becomes even more evident during gameplay, particularly in indoor areas, which tend to run significantly slower than outdoor areas even when lowering all settings. Thankfully, dynamic resolution works as intended. For example, here I am getting around 50 FPS with 100% DLSS or DLAA. And by adjusting the minimum resolution to 66%, allowing the game to dynamically switch from DLSS quality mode to DLAA, the performance improved as expected without any signs of stuttering or inconsistency. However, there is one issue related to Unreal Engine 4's built-in FPS cap. If I target 60 FPS instead of 120, the in-game cap does not work properly, leading to inconsistent frame times. To address this, I recommend using an external FPS limiter, such as through the GPU driver control panel or Riva tuner. And as you can see here, this approach delivers much smoother and more consistent frame times. Now let's move on to the quality settings, starting with background model detail. This setting adjusts the LOD and geometry quality as well as the draw distance of various environmental elements such as trees, grass, terrain, and buildings. And visually, the most noticeable change occurs when going from low to medium with significant improvements in detail. Moving beyond medium to high and ultra adds finer details at a distance. This is also reflected on LOD pop-in as low exhibits prominent pop-in close to the camera, while medium and high greatly reduce it, though grass pop-in remains visible at a distance. On ultra, pop-in becomes almost unnoticeable, at least in this area. In terms of performance, this is the most demanding setting in the game. Here, when standing still, going from low to medium costs around 6%, to high 10%, and to ultra 26%. However, in the previous example, the performance differences is even more pronounced, with ultra costing a massive 44%. So for this one, I recommend medium or high. After background detail, most other settings don't offer any meaningful performance gains. For example, ocean detail adjusts the complexity of the ocean's water surface, and there is only around 2% performance difference when going from low to high. So given the negligible performance costs, I recommend keeping this one at high. Next, we have character model detail, which I'm not sure what it does visually, as switching between low and high doesn't reveal any noticeable changes in character's quality or details, and the performance is pretty much identical between low and high, so keep this one at high. Moving on to effect details, this setting adjusts the density and quantity of particle effects. For example, when breaking these boxes, there is a noticeable increase in the number of particles when using high compared to low, and the same goes in this particle heavy scene. In terms of performance, this is another setting with negligible impact, so unless you're noticing performance drops during intense combat scenarios, it's best to keep this one at high. Let's move on to texture resolution. This one is straightforward and controls the resolution of the textures, as you can see here. And while the quality of many textures may not be impressive, the game still demands a significant amount of VRAM. In fact, 8GB of VRAM is not enough for high textures at 1440p even when using upscaling. For instance, here with high texture resolution on the 3660 Ti, the performance is not great, with high RAM usage indicating an issue with the VRAM, and switching to medium textures significantly improves performance. Therefore, if you have an 8GB GPU, I recommend keeping texture resolution at medium to avoid performance issues. Next, we have shadow quality, and currently this setting is not working as intended and does not affect the quality of in-game shadows, and the performance is identical between low and high, so for now it doesn't matter whether to keep this one at low or high. Moving on to fog quality, this one adjusts the resolution of volumetric effects such as fog, mists, smoke, and light shafts like here, and using low can lead to noticeable flickering on some volumetric effects, especially light shafts. And the performance impact of this setting can vary depending on the scene. Here, for example, going from low to high costs around 4%, but in some other areas like here the cost increases to around 9%. So for this one I recommend low, but if you are not struggling with performance, keep it at high. And lastly, we have these two sliders. The first one is for characters display, which controls the distance at which NPCs become visible and animated, as you can see here. In terms of performance, even in crowded areas like this one, there is no noticeable difference between 0 and 10. Therefore, I recommend keeping this one at 10. The second slider is for character shadow display distance, which, as the name suggests, adjusts the distance at which character shadows become visible. At 0, all character shadows, including clouds, are completely disabled, and increasing the value gradually enables shadows for distant NPCs. And this is another setting with minimal impact on performance, so I recommend keeping it at 10. Given everything we've discussed so far, these are my recommended settings for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Let's now compare how these settings look and perform against the high preset at 1440p with 66% DLSS and medium texture resolution on both sides. As we've seen throughout the video, there are essentially two settings that have a significant impact on performance: background model detail and fog quality, which limits how much performance we can extract from the graphics settings without significantly compromising the visual fidelity, and makes dynamic resolution scaling or upscaling necessary to maintain smoother performance. However, despite all this, optimized settings here provide a nice 44% performance improvement over the high preset at the same resolution with minimal visual sacrifice. And with that, we arrive at the end. Thank you so much for watching and for your time. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and if not, leave a dislike. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for future videos, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.